everyone. I am Abeeda Haroon. I'm heading the customer experience function at Poly, which is a US startup based out of Seattle. Poly is a fully remote company, and I've been with them since the last 2.5 years. Before that, I was in a hybrid work setup for 1 year with Foodpanda, and before that, I was with Telenor. So I've lived through the pre-COVID office work setup for a decade, then pivoted to hybrid, and then further pivoted to remote. And I absolutely love remote work. The picture that you see here, this was me globe-trotting the last 2 months. Remember when you're a kid and you're asked, what do you want to become when you grow up? I wanted to be an air hostess because I wanted to see the world. And luckily for me, remote work has enabled me to fulfill my dream of traveling the world. It gives me the flexibility to manage my day, makes me feel more empowered. It has helped me with my mental health journey. And, usually people say that remote work, ya ghar se kaam means har waqt kaam. For me, it's actually been quite the opposite, as remote work has helped me in establishing healthy boundaries, which makes my work and life beyond work more meaningful for me. I strongly believe that remote work opportunities hold immense potential for Pakistani talent. The networking, the exposure, the growth opportunities that remote work holds are absolutely unbounded. And hopefully by the end of this talk, you will be motivated or curious enough to delve further into this remote work adventure, if not already. So shifting gears a bit, like everything else in life, certain conditions need to be met in order to make something a success. A statement like remote work makes teams more productive only holds true if it's happening in a certain context. And what is that context? What are these conditions that need to be met in order to make remote work thrive for you? To address this broad question, I've divided my talk in basically two sections. One is the hiring bit, how does the hiring process look like for remote workers? And then the second bit is that how to ace this, because, after all, you want a thriving career that brings out the best in you. And obviously, it makes great money as well. And in the end, if we have time, we can touch upon a topic which is very relevant these days about exploring opportunities outside Pakistan. For remote workers, there's a separate visa category by the name of digital nomad visa. I'll talk about the immense opportunity this holds at the very end. So starting off with hiring, because that's where your journey typically begins. One, make yourself serviceable for these companies or these recruiters. And how do you do that? Must have an updated, complete LinkedIn profile with a professional picture. Have a meaningful LinkedIn presence. Read up on how to make the LinkedIn algo work to your advantage. And please, it's not about writing, commenting for better research, better reach, or congratulations. If these companies were to see you doing just that, trust me, it's going to go against you. Secondly, be comfortable with new tools and technology. These remote work companies are primarily tech companies. So be assured that they're using lots of tools to drive internal and external collaboration. So in whatever space you're in, whether that's marketing or content or coding or something else, know that the tools that are being used in that space and develop a familiarity with them. Thirdly, have some meaningful hobbies or interests beyond work. I can't stress this point enough, whether that's some sort of sport or cooking or gardening or reading or fitness or meditation, anything at all, but have something that you do as part of your daily routine. And I'll tell you why. वैसे तो self-driven is a good attribute to have in all roles, remote or non-remote, but even more so in the remote space. So, someone who isn't committed to taking care of themselves, that's a big red flag for these companies where you need people who are very self-driven and self-motivated. Fourthly, self-awareness is a big thing in this space. So if you don't know what excites you, what demotivates you, what's important for you, then you will struggle in identifying what kind of working environment is best suited for you. Example, one common difference between remote versus in-office teams is that, remote thrives on an adult relationship, whereas in-office setups are more inclined towards a parental relationship. I'm not saying that's the case in 100% of the scenarios, but this is the general theme that you see. And nothing is good or bad over here. It just depends on what kind of environment makes you most productive. So what happens in a parental environment? Parents are telling the child that ye karna hai, ye nahi karna, keeping an eye on the whereabouts. Whereas if I think of you as a grown up, as a mature adult, I would give you the space to do things, which includes making mistakes as well, but as long as you're learning from them. You're responsible for the consequences of your choices. No one is on your head all the time because they know that you will deliver on what is expected from you. So coming back to the point of self-awareness that I was talking about, know yourself. So you know what kind of role or what kind of environments make the best version of you come out. There are other things as well, but I would say these 4 things are a must pre-work that you should be focusing on in order to improve your likelihood of getting noticed by these remote companies. Relevant experience, role fit, job fit, company fit, culture fits, these things still stand true. And they're important as well and in parallel, but the other things that I talked about are equally important as well. Lastly, coming to the interview leg, let's say you've been shortlisted for an interview, now what? Research the company website, the product, do LinkedIn research of the people interviewing you. Knowing your interviewer really helps. I remember once I was being interviewed by a guy in Singapore, and I looked up his LinkedIn, and turns out that he was very high on numbers. All his posts had some number associated to them. So as part of the interview prep, I focused on examples with a quantitative impact and not just qualitative things to them. So, really coming up with, really knowing the other person who will be there on the other side of Zoom and prepping accordingly. And people who make that extra effort, it always stands out. Don't just connect on a Zoom call and start talking. No, prepare for that particular context. For remote positions, you're competing with a global talent. So standing out is even more tough. One standard prep for one position is not enough. Every interview is different because every interviewer is different. So prepare for every interview round and expect some exercises as well, in the form of case study or some written exercise as well during a remote position hiring. Now, during the interview, it's not just them assessing you, it's you as well. So you need to assess if this company is the right fit for you as well or not. In your interactions, do you see any red flag? And very importantly, discuss the opportunity with the relevant people who are in that space. Let's say you get an offer. How are you going to negotiate the salary, the equity? How does the vesting period look like? What are the tax implications? Do you get paid in dollars or in local currency? If it's in the local currency, which is PKR, then it's likely that they have a setup in Pakistan already, increasing the chances of this being a tactical role as opposed to being a strategic role. So only someone who is part of this space will be able to guide you or mentor you or help you in identifying the pros and cons of what this position holds. So it's about talking to the relevant people in that space, I would say. And circling back to then self-awareness, prereq that we earlier talked about, a high level of self-awareness will help you decide whether the environment, what is the kind of environment that you thrive in. Some people need processes, policies, structures, while others thrive on chaos, like myself. And some thrive on building things, navigating the unknowns. Some are individual contributors. Some get energized by leading teams or building teams. So have that self-awareness about yourself, so that during the hiring process, you get an idea about how much aligned this role is with your personal and career aspirations. So please, knowing yourself is the key to kind of being ready for a remote position. Moving on now, great news, you've got the remote job, you're hired. So how do you make an impression and become a remote work superstar? Now, there are some things which are entirely your responsibility, which I call owning your logistics. These include just say, if you were in an office job, you would own your commute requirements. So similarly, in this case, you own your logistics, which in this case would be a strong internet connection and a backup, electricity backup, device backup, a private space, setting boundaries with everyone at home about your working hours. You're being paid to do this job, so you have to set those boundaries with your family that they need to respect at all times. There are certain things on the employer side as well. Example, how clearly your onboarding plan is communicated to you. I remember when I joined Poly, I didn't get any emails in my first week. And I started to feel that I wasn't important enough because the context in which I had worked for the last like more than a decade, it was that the decision makers are in loop of the emails. So I was like, what is happening over here? Turns out Poly doesn't have an email culture. Emails are only for external communication. And why is that? What is the problem with emails? When someone exits, everything is gone, which makes it an inefficient medium of storing or information or even collaboration for that matter. And this is the part where being interested in learning new tools and technologies comes in as well. How do you communicate in Slack? How do you write product briefs in Notion? How do you look up data in Amplitude and Sigma and convert it into meaningful insights? So, over here, thoughts like, खुद से एक नया टूल सीखना पड़ेगा, और जो साथ बैठ के काम होता है वो जूम पे नहीं हो पाता, साथ बैठ के आप सर पे खड़े होके जिससे एस्केलेशन करनी है, सर पे खड़े होके जाके काम करवा लो, वो उसी वक्त हो जाता है। गलत काम बिल्कुल होता है और जूम पे होता है और बहुत अच्छा होता है, because if you have chosen to be in the remote workspace, then you need to make that effort to make the collaboration work. This attitude won't work, कि ये नहीं हो सकता. Remove these lines from your conditioning altogether. You've got to be a hustler, someone who keeps exploring, experimenting, executing, failing, then getting up again, pivoting, and then very, very importantly, communicating. Because working in a silo is not going to go to your advantage or the company's advantage, which is a great segue to my next point. That is how to make yourself heard and visible in a remote setup. So if you personally ask me, in a remote role, I felt more heard than my in-office jobs. And why is that? Because, in office, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this as well, that we've experienced this, that the loudest person in the room, gets all the attention, even if they're talking nonsense. So, and while presenting, people will pick on you needlessly just to make a point. And then, of course, there's gossip in the tea corners and lunch cafeterias and smoking corners. So remote work actually takes all of this away. Well, lucky for me, it did take all of this away. But yeah, even if it's not true it's not 100% true in all contexts, but it is definitely quite true in most of the context, I would say. So I feel that I'm being heard in a meeting, or you will feel that you'll be heard in a meeting if you have gone through the meeting pre-reads, because then you're making a meaningful contribution. So be prepared for your meetings, be active on Slack or Teams or Zoom or wherever your team is collaborating. You will be working with different teams in different time zones. So explore ways of using technology for asynchronous work, substitute meetings with Slack messages or Loom videos or Notion docs. And if you're working with different cultures, read up on how decision-making or communication works in those cultures. I remember there was a time when I was struggling in working with my boss who came in from a US background. And then there was this amazing book, Culture Map, that I came across, which kind of mapped out that, how different cultures operate differently. How does the decision-making work? How does the communication work? And all those things. So that really helped me in bridging that communication gap with my line manager back then. And think of ways that how can you make it easy for the team at large. Example, what are the challenges that you faced while learning a specific new tool? Document them for other new joiners, so they don't have to face the same difficulty. So again, these are just things that you can do to make yourself more visible, more present. Your voice will be heard across the company. So it's about stepping out of your silo, and the information that you have, share it. And at the end, it's all about, stepping up and contributing in whichever possible way that you can. going back a bit about drawing comparisons between remote work and in-office setup, in office there's small celebrations like birthdays, okay, Independence Day celebrations, okay, this month Pinktober celebrations are going on. LinkedIn is, they're all over LinkedIn these days. So, these things give you a reason to dress up. They give you a change. They bring about, you have some fun as well at work. These are less likely to be present in the remote space. So yes, you will have to motivate yourself. It will require self-discipline. So you need to find out what are the things that motivate you. Example, it could be ongoing candid feedback or small customer wins if you're in a customer facing role, or being recognized or being appreciated for your work instantly, or it could be something else. So it all goes back to being self-aware about yourself on what exactly is it that motivates you. And if you feel the need for a regular feedback, ask for it. But I would also suggest that before asking for it, reflect upon it. What is it that I could have done differently in this scenario? And then, of course, that's going to make your conversation with your line manager more meaningful, more action oriented, because it's not just one person telling the other person. It's also about the other person having an impression or having a view of how that incident or episode went. Because remember, you're not in that telling parental environment. You're an adult. Similarly, on the growth and the learning aspect, your learning is primarily your responsibility. Don't wait to be enrolled for a training program. Explore it is that you want to learn more about. What is it that excites you, and just go for it. Don't wait for things to happen to you. Just do them. That's like the norm in the remote space. And very importantly, I think these are the small things, but they make a lot of difference, that make that effort to turn on your camera and look impressionable. Take a shower. It shifts your energy altogether, just like that. And remote job does not mean that you are sitting around in your PJs all day long. Lazy people don't accomplish greatness. So be active, be present for yourself, and that's definitely going to pay off. That I can guarantee you. Coming to the last bit, because I think we're good on time. We've talked about how you can increase your chances of getting fully hired in or getting hired in a fully remote company. And now that you're there, how to nail it. So shifting gears a bit now towards the larger global picture over here, that is the digital nomad visa. For those of you who are less familiar with this, just Google digital nomad visa and you'll get to know all about it. Last I checked, there were more than 60 countries that are offering this visa category to remote workers. Obviously, there are salary and other requirements which you need to fulfill to be eligible. But it's something like this. Like there's an immigration queue, and then there's a tourist visa queue, and then there's a business visa queue. And now there is this new queue, which is dedicated solely for remote workers. So imagine that, it's you don't have to wait in the already long queues. You're creating your own queue over here by being part of the remote space. Some companies that I personally researched on included Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, and even Dubai offers these visas. But of course, every country has their own set of requirements. They have a different process. Some even offer citizenship at the end of a certain time period. But obviously, it's a very individual-driven decision. You need to evaluate which country is suited for you, depending on the weather, the culture, people, cost of living. So many other factors come into play while you're kind of doing your research. But if moving out of Pakistan is something that you're open to, then a remote position can definitely help you with that. Personally, because a lot of positions, fully remote roles in Pakistan are US companies. So I believe it helped me in my visa process. So, it might help you in your process as well. Obviously, there are a lot of other factors as well that contribute to getting a US visa. But I felt that that's something that can go to your advantage, or it won't go to your disadvantage. Let me put it this way. To sum up, I would definitely say that while COVID isn't remembered fondly, we owe these plethora of remote opportunities to COVID. I find it to be a beautiful expression of embracing diversity. It recognizes that everyone is different, but this also means that not everyone would thrive in this remote setting. While remote work is here to stay, recognize which working environment brings out the best in you. We are privileged to be in times where we have a choice now. And if remote work is something that aligns with your career and personal aspirations, then start prepping your profile for it. Make yourself more serviceable for these companies. Make a mark for yourself while you're there. Don't settle for mediocrity. Own your development and open doors for more Pakistanis while you're at it. You're not just representing yourself, you're representing Pakistan. So show them what Pakistanis are capable of. Be the torchbearer of the image of Pakistan that you would like your country to be known for. So I strongly believe that we all can play a role in building a positive narrative. So let's shoulder that responsibility with pride. Thank you, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing my experiences with you all. I hope I managed to contribute positively to your remote work journey. Thank you, GoRemote Summit team, for putting this together, and hopefully collectively we can inspire the Pakistani talent to be the go-to market for remote companies. If you would like to talk more about this space or discuss opportunities, I'll be happy to connect with you over LinkedIn. Have an incredible, incredible rest of the day.